Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to the November BAC meeting. My name is Alan Gonzalez. I'm a transportation planner with Arlington County DES. It is 7:03 p.m. on November 6th, 2023. With that, I'll let Cynthia take it off.
Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Cynthia Palmer, and today our introductory question, we'll go around and say our names and then say, how did you get to high school when you were a student? And if you have your own kids, you can say how they are getting to school. And if they've already graduated, what mode did they take to and from high school? So I will start. I ran a mile, took the New York City subway, packed with half of New York in there, and ran another mile, and that got me to school. We didn't have school buses, at least not at my public school. Um, my children tried to snag a ride from their friends. They knew that um, their mom would not drive them to school, but it's very much the culture. And so sometimes they would walk, they would always walk home, but if they were lucky, they would find a friend with a car to get them there in the morning. So we have a big challenge ahead just knowing the culture now of the high schools in Arlington. Let's go down the list. Dana, is that you on the phone ending in 15? No, that's not.
Yeah,
Who's on
no,
the
that's
phone?
correct.
Okay,
That's me.
okay.
My laptop decided it wanted to update, so I had to go to Plan B.
Got
Yeah,
it.
I got to high school by driving all alone in a Dodge pickup truck that got 12 miles to the gallon.
Wow, very good. Uh, Um, Brian Shelton.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I got to high school. I carpooled with my friends from the pool. I had swim practice at 5 in the morning, and then would go to high school, and then had swim practice after high school. It was all carpool.
Wow, that's serious. Okay, Collier Cook.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest, in the semi-rural Midwest, and so either took the school bus until you got your driver's license, and then you drove yourself. That was the culture. I don't think we even had bike racks, or no one walked because it was in the middle of a cornfield, no, not close to any town. So yeah, it was. Hindsight, it was a really poorly cited high school that no one could get there any other means, but that was the way it was done back in the mid century, last century. So
Back
yep.
in the 1900s. Oh
Oh yeah.
yeah, I know that century. Um, let's see, David Ansell.
David, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. um, yeah, I'm David Ansell. I mostly took the bus to high school. That senior year, I'd get a ride with friends, and my kids mostly took the bus to high school around in Arlington.
Yeah. Owen, you can go again.
Yeah, sure. My name is Alan Gonzalez. I grew up in suburban Orlando. The town in front of it's called St. Cloud, Florida. It's about 30 minutes south of Orlando. But anyways, my high school was about 3 miles away from my parents' house. So I used to take the school bus, which is where I met a lot of my friends that I still keep in touch with today. But when I got my first car, probably junior year of high school, then I started to drive my friends, and I would be the one to carpool with everybody. So it'd be the four of us piling into my Corolla, going to school back and forth.
Wonderful. Eric Goodman.
Hi, I'm Eric Goodman. I'm also currently the acting chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and sort of the liaison between the two committees. And so I used to walk to school. I only lived like 2.5 blocks from my school, so it was really easy from my high school. My son, he rode his bike to middle school and high school, and to high school he used to ride with a friend, so they would usually get together, and his friend would come by and he'd join him and go off to school. But thinking about it, I don't recall that there were any sort of bike racks of any type when I was in high school. They were few and far between back then.
Yeah. All right. Well, your son is an inspiration to all of our children. Let's see, Mike Hanna.
All right, I'm Mike Hanna. And I got to apologize beforehand. I'm only going to be on for the first hour tonight. I have another conflict. Went to Falls Church High back in the day. I used to walk until I got my license, and then I drove a 1962 Valiant station wagon that probably got 14 miles a gallon, maybe. And my kid did various things. My oldest went to Yorktown out of district, and so he took the art bus every day until he got his license. And then my younger son went to Wakefield, did a little bus, little getting rides. And then my daughter went to a private school, and we had to drive her every day, and that part stunk. But I'm trying to remember whether Falls Church had bike racks back then. I think they kind of did, but not many people rode, not back then.
Yeah. Wow, you've had it all with your kids going different places.
Going everywhere, yeah.
Uh-huh. Let's see, what are we up to? Kevin O'Brien.
Hey, y'all, Kevin O'Brien with the Washington Area Bicycles Association. I try to send this often as I can, but we'll hop between 7:30 and 8:30. Sorry, maybe you may see me back on in a little bit. I just double checked Google Maps because I wanted to know the exact mileage. But I took the bus until I got my license, and then I drove myself and my sister to high school, which would be totally fine if my high school wasn't 1 mile away. It was so close in retrospect. And I did walk, a few times, but more often than not, I drove my 1995 Ford Escort hatchback to and from high school 1 mile away.
Where was this?
This was in southeastern Massachusetts.
Okay. Fascinating. I think Leslie is next. It says Lily T. Is that Leslie? Lily or Leslie? Maybe. All right, we'll come back. Andrew Martin.
Hi there. So I'm from a mid-size Midwestern city, lived about 4 miles from my high school. It was a private high school, no buses. So I got dropped off by my parents until I got my license, and then drove by myself. My brothers, who were 4 and 6 years older than me, were able to carpool together when they went.
Nice. Okay. Randy.
Oh, I used to walk to high school most of the time. Then I rode my bicycle because I had a paper route, and afterwards I'd have to go pick up my papers and carry them around. And then finally, my senior year, I got a 1952 Nash four-door sedan, and I drove that to school most of the time.
Great. All right. Raymond.
Hi, everyone. Raymond Durant with Bike Arlington. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. My first high school, because I transferred. First high school was 2 city buses and like an hour and a half commute, pretty far away. Then transferred to a school a lot closer. It was about a 12-minute walk. But as a true teenager, I waited till the very last second to get out of the door. So it was more speed walking and knocked it down to like 7-8 minutes walk to make it on time. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, as a fellow New Yorker, like I didn't know anybody who had a car or even knew how to drive when I was in high school. So it's
Yeah.
still like shocking to me that kids
Yeah.
drive. But I guess that y'all, a lot of you, not Raymond, but
Yeah, my family, we had a car and that was just to go see family in Long Island. It was just, yeah, everything was public transit.
yeah.
It was a lot easier. The parking is terrible.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you have to be so skilled in New York. Yeah. All right. So oh, here we go. There's more. Aaron.
Hey guys, Aaron Schutz. I actually biked to high school today. So, but back when I was a wee lad, Midwestern high school also absolutely, as soon as I could get off the bus and drive, everybody wanted to drive. We had a huge surface parking lot and everybody had their bitchin' Camaros out there and everybody was jealous of everybody's car or showing off their car. So car culture all the way. Biking, we'd bike for recreation, but it wasn't anything that anybody aspired to. I didn't, certainly. But now, every day. And I get so mad at the high school kids that I teach that they will drive 1 mile to get to school. I'll literally pass them in the wintertime as they're scraping the ice off their car and I'm biking past them. I'm like, what are you doing? And then they have to park half a mile away because Yorktown doesn't have a good parking lot. But culture, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Steve Offit.
Hi, Steve Offit. I'm in the courthouse neighborhood. When I walked to my high school, it was about maybe 8/10 of a mile. But I do recall that what was called junior high school back then is now middle school, slightly farther, maybe about a mile. And I remember biking there when I was in 7th grade with my brother. But then he went off to a different high school. So I ended up walking with my buddies every day. It was like a 20-minute walk. We made that work. I do recall, though, in high school, so I guess I was like this all the way back then. I would be walking to school that 8/10 or whatever mile it was, and I would see other students getting in their cars as I was walking past them to drive over to the same school I was going to. So they were literally closer than I was, and they would get in their car and drive. Both of my kids went to high school in Arlington, and my daughter took the school bus. No, actually, my son went to Thomas Jefferson High School, and he took the school bus until some of his friends got cars, and then he would sometimes carpool with them. But he never had access to his own vehicle, so he had to figure it out on his own, one way or another.
Very nice. Leslie.
Yes, finally, I found the app. I went to school in a New Jersey suburb of New York City. High school was a mile away. I just walked with a couple of my friends. If the weather was disgusting, I could beg my mother to give us a ride, but that was it. No bus, no nothing, no car.
Got it. Jillian. You're muted.
I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is like a suburb on steroids. And in elementary school, you may have heard the story before, but I was always jealous because the neighborhood across this one busy street from me had a crossing guard and even had a bike train to get to the elementary school. But my parents didn't let me, I couldn't get over to where the crossing guard was. And so I had to take the school bus. And then in middle school and for 1 year of high school, I went to a magnet schools that were like really far away from my house. And I took the school bus until high school. And then I got a ride with some idiots who were in 11th grade. And then we got into a really major crash that was completely their fault, which was awesome. And then I went to boarding school and walked everywhere. That's great.
Wow. Well, I hope everyone was okay in the crash.
Eventually we were. I think it was just me that it hit my head, but I was fine in the end. I just had a black eye for like 2 months. It was great.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you're okay now. Who did I miss? Anyone? We good? All right. Why don't we plow through the agenda? And first up, we have Brian Shelton here to talk about Shared Streets pilot projects.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, I didn't know I had options. I'm not sure what everyone can see right now. Give me 1 second.
You can see your PowerPoint slides, but
okay.
they're like minimized.
Okay. Is that better now?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. My name is Brian Shelton. I am the project manager for the Neighborhood Complete Streets Shared Street pilot projects. I'm also the active transportation planner. My colleague, Michelle Stafford, she's the Neighborhood Complete Streets program manager. She was unable to make it to the meeting tonight. Do want to give you a brief background on the Neighborhood Complete Streets program. Oops. And then as brief as I can. And then I want to discuss more in depth shared streets in the context of Arlington County, the shared street pilot projects, some of the designs that staff have been working on, locations for the pilot projects, and then project timeline, what you all can expect in the future. Starting with I feel like I lost it again. Need my notes. All right. So the Neighborhood Complete Streets program was initiated in 2014 after the Neighborhood Traffic Calming program was retired. The goal of the program is to address issues of safety and accessibility on Arlington's local streets to make streets safe, and comfortable for everyone who travels, whether by walking, biking, riding, transit, in a car, what have you. The program has been funding and building capital projects to reach this goal on an annual basis since 2020. There is a selection process for the Neighborhood Complete Streets program. Streets are identified by the public through a simple online application. All nominated streets are scored based on objective criteria, and it considers the existing conditions of the street, which are, for example, history of collisions, speeds of traveling cars, and other activities in the area near each location. Once scored, the streets are then ranked into a prioritized list of streets for funding consideration. Staff and the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission work together to identify which top ranked streets will be advanced into the NCS projects. And then projects undergo a period of public engagement and preliminary design and are considered at the public funding hearing for recommendation by the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission, and then eventual approval of the Arlington County Board. Just to note, the program itself has funded 4 pilot projects and 9 capital projects to date, with a total investment of $4.25 million in improvements on Arlington's neighborhood streets. But the topic and the reason for tonight's presentation, not all of the locations on the project list are able to accommodate new sidewalks. Many locations on the ranked list of streets lack a complete sidewalk. The width of county-owned right-of-way is set, it's predetermined. Many elements of the street need to fit within that space, such as street trees, utility poles, space for travel lanes, and on-street parking, which need to be balanced since they're all important features of a neighborhood street. Often topography is also an issue. It makes it hard to add a sidewalk. It's very expensive, oftentimes beyond the budget of the Neighborhood Complete Streets program. And the same goes for the retaining walls. As a result, the space from the curb to curb is shared between people walking, biking, and driving. The street needs to be wide enough to allow for emergency services to perform important duties, but streets that are currently sharing a space between all users could be improved to make them safer and more comfortable for everybody. So, begin this conversation with, what is a shared street? The streets element of the Arlington County Master Transportation Plan does offer a solution. These are shared streets. Shared streets are defined as a local street where the needs of motor vehicles are generally secondary to the needs of pedestrians, bicyclists, and other roadway users. The National Association of City Transportation Officials, NACTO, provides additional guidance and defines neighborhood shared streets as places where there is insufficient sidewalk in which children play and people walk, sharing the roadway with drivers. Shared streets can meet the desires of adjacent residents and function foremost as a public space for recreation, socializing, and leisure. Many streets in Arlington, from what we've observed, already function as a shared street. However, we are missing some of the treatments which would enhance pedestrian comfort on these roadways and kind of slow drivers down to meet those requirements. Again, we'll reference NACTO here briefly. They do provide guidance for the design of shared streets. Some of the recommendations seen here, like the elimination of curbs and reducing the setback from the street to the house, is not yet suitable for Arlington County, and right now beyond the scope and the budget of the pilot projects. However, there are mid-block and street entrance treatment options which are used to slow down traffic. The county has used many of these design features, like chicanes, for example, and curb extensions, to slow down automobile traffic, and with some success. Shared street entrance treatments, such as advisory signs and pavement markings, will be evaluated for potential inclusion in the county's multimodal safety engineering toolbox. These two treatments specifically, the advisory signs and the pavement markings, are designed to eliminate the confusion of how the street is intended to be used. On this slide, you can see two examples of street entrance treatments from other cities that staff looked at when designing street entrance treatments for Arlington County. They often include pavement markings and signage. The large image of the bicycle street stamp on the left-hand side is installed on streets where bicycle traffic is intended to take precedence over motorized vehicle traffic. The image of the sign assembly on the right is a vertical reminder to drivers to expect pedestrians and cyclists on the roadway and to drive with caution. As you will see on the next slide, these images helped inform a series of shared street entrance treatments as options to consider for Arlington streets. And this is what we have come up with. Engineering, Vision Zero, and transportation planning staff were all included in the design of the shared street stamp on the left and the shared street sign assembly on the right. The stamp and the sign are designed to meet national and county specifications for pavement markings and sign design. The stamp is intended to be painted on the entire travel lane width of the street. The size is intended to catch the attention of drivers who should be expecting to see children and adults walking, cycling, and rolling along the street. The bike and ped symbols are to be painted with a white reflective paint to increase visibility. The terracotta color circle will also be bordered by the same reflective paint. The sign assembly is also to reinforce the shared condition of the street through additional symbols and a cautionary speed limit of 15 miles per hour as is recommended by the Master Transportation Plan. These shared street entrance treatments will be evaluated for potential inclusion in the county's multimodal safety engineering toolbox and may be considered to address specific safety and operational challenges. And I wanted to give you all kind of an idea of what these might look like. Still in the design phase, these are not engineered drawings whatsoever, just as an image. Here we have the entrance, or at least the travel lane width here is 20 feet. We do, in some areas, we might propose to neck down that entrance to that 20 feet to help slow traffic either leaving the street or coming into the street. And then again, you'd have the shared street sign assembly to reinforce the shared street condition. Another option that staff is looking at is moving the shared street out of the logo and onto the street itself. Still have some decisions to be made there. I'm going to show you now the three locations. And I want to preface this with each of these locations. We haven't spent any time designing any treatments yet. And the shared street treatment, until we receive public feedback, we'll determine at that point whether the treatment will go down or not. The first one will be South Lynn Street. This is in the Arlington Ridge neighborhood. It was nominated because it does lack sidewalk infrastructure. It does have a reported crash with an injury. It's near schools, businesses, and as y'all can see, transit as well. And there are a number of constraints on this street as well. Curb to curb width, along with the high parking demand, kind of restricts the construction of sidewalk. Also, we have steep terrain that we're dealing with. The presence of utility poles and the setbacks to housing are other factors which make constructing a sidewalk challenging. And as you can see from the picture, there's also a presence of street trees and landscaping. We do have some of the project qualifiers. We're looking at that low ADT. Arlington County recommends that the ADT be under 1,500 vehicles per day in order to receive a shared street treatment. We do have high automobile speeds. They range from 12 to 30 miles per hour. It's one of the challenges that we're going to be facing in this design process. Second street is going to be North Wakefield Street. In the Bluemont neighborhood, this is from Carlin Springs to Wilson Boulevard. Nominated for many of the same reasons South Lynn Street is. It lacks complete sidewalk infrastructure. It's near many businesses, schools, and public transit as well. The curb-to-curb width, along with the high parking demand, also restricts the construction of sidewalk. We also have utilities, as was in the same case for South Lynn Street. And the setbacks to houses and apartments are other factors which make constructing sidewalks in this location challenging. Residents have also voiced their concerns for the preservation of street trees. We do have a moderately high ADT of 1,271 vehicles a day. Average vehicle speeds, again, from 16 to 32 miles per hour, which is quite high. We need to be careful of that. And the last street that was nominated for the pilot projects is 12th Street South. This is in the Douglas Park neighborhood from South Glebe Road to Walter Reed Drive. Again, the street is nominated because it lacks complete sidewalk infrastructure. There is a reported crash in the area in the proximity of businesses, transit, and bicycle facilities. The street itself is also within the walk zone to the Arlington County Career Center and numerous other schools. Again, there are many constraints which prohibit the construction of sidewalk and would normally disqualify 12th Street South. One of which the curb-to-curb width and the need to maintain, again, that on-street parking, limited setbacks to the houses from the street, and the preservation of street trees and existing landscaping. The ADT at this street is much lower. It's at 140. The automobile speeds, again, which are a problem in this area, range from 11 to 36 miles per hour. And with that, public feedback and comment can be made online. Today is the first day that the website was opened up. Public feedback will be open until December 3rd. All feedback and comments will be considered in the design of solutions for each of the 3 projects and will be shared back with the public at a future public engagement event in late winter or early spring of next year. Stop sharing, and I'll drop the link, at least for the online page, in the chat here.
So that was absolutely fascinating. And I think we have a lot of questions already. So let's start with Collier.
Thank you very much, Brian. I really appreciate the presentation, and I'll be interested to see how this works. As this is a pilot, how are you going to measure success? How will this, at the end of this, know if this needs to spread or if these are inadequate? Because I tend to worry when things are just paint and signs that there's going to be much meaningful change in behavior, but maybe I'm wrong. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. I do have, I'm going to pull it up from another presentation that we gave to the neighborhood Complete Streets Commission. Can you see this? Can you see this slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Owen. So we do have a number of performance indicators. Starting off with the timeline, I'll begin with.
Do you mind expanding it to full screen?
Oh,
can you make it a full
sure.
screen file?
Sorry about that. There we go. I'm trying to move this out of the way. So right now we're at public engagement. It hasn't been updated since, but we're in November at this point. Once we receive feedback from the public engagement period that'll be ending in December. We'll take some time to review the public engagement, go into design, and then after design into implementation. We do plan a full year for monitoring and evaluation. Part of the monitoring and evaluation process is to kind of look at a number of different performance indicators that we've highlighted, of which are material durability. That would be the flexi posts, the paint that we're using on the ground to neck down that entrance to the street, like I showed you, for example, or even for the street stamp. And we'll also be looking at the durability of the materials for the assembly as well. We'll also be looking at traffic indicators like speed and AADT. I collected the speeds in person, and we'll go out at least 3 more times to maintain that, to maintain the record from implementation to that last year to see if there was any change. We also noted volumes of the streets as well. We do intend to go back and check the volumes. We'll also be looking at crash reports throughout the year. We have a historical crash database that we can use to reference and see if anything has improved on those streets that did have a crash. We'll also be taking results from the public surveys, or not public surveys, but public feedback forms. The first feedback form is live currently, and then we'll issue another feedback form at that year. Or that monitoring and evaluation period is over at that 1 year. And then any public comment that we receive through the 311 platform. If the indicators show that there is an improvement on the street, we will present these results to leadership, to the public, and to the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission, at which point we'll develop a maintenance plan, identify funding sources, and explore a wider application. If the indicators show no improvement, we'll still report the results to leadership, public, and commission, and either seek to redesign if possible, or remove the treatments entirely. Next question. I'm not sure what the order is.
Dana, you go next.
Yeah, okay. What's the engagement of the Arlington Police Department in this? Are they going to target enforcement? You know, you've highlighted excess speeds on every one of those roads.
I did. Right now, we have not reached out to Arlington PD. They are not going to enforce speeds on those roads until they receive a public complaint through their own platform or database. I am going to take this down though. It's the first comment that I've heard from at least within our own internal meetings, and see if I can follow up with PD on this, because that's a good idea.
Well,
Thanks.
the other thing is change the signs from yellow to black and white. Change the speed limit to 15. Arlington can do that.
We can do that. It's going to add additional time to the project. As it is a pilot, we'd like to see how the public responds first to the cautionary speed of 15 miles per hour before we do make it a permanent change.
Okay.
So could you explain that for ignorant people like myself? There's the cautionary and then there's the real speed limit. How does this work?
The cautionary is a recommended speed, and it's cautionary because of the color. I've just recently learned this myself as well, so I consider myself a layman in this world of signage. So the yellow sign with the black border designates that caution should be applied when approaching speeds as they're indicated on the sign. And we can advise cautionary speeds, or we can advise or post-advise speeds on roads. And it does not require any vote from the county board in order to do so. However, if we're going to go to the black and white sign, which is a required speed, we do have to take that to the county board. They do have to vote on it, and it is a change in ordinance, which would require additional time before we could implement some of the recommendations on the streets.
So what
That
is the
15
enforceability?
For the cautionary, for the yellow and the black, it's not enforceable. It's cautionary or advisory. For the white and black, it does become enforceable. So at 15 miles an hour, that would be the new speed limit for that street segment and could be enforced by the police.
So a car could legally, no problem, drive 30 miles an hour or whatever it is.
Yes, with the yellow and black sign, the car could drive, you know, like I showed you the ranges, they could go from 11 to 36 miles an hour.
So
Well, no,
will
the speed limit on all these streets is 25.
Well, no,
right?
yeah, the speed limit is
Right.
25, but the enforced speed limit, according to what we heard from Arlington County Police, is, you know, it's like 10 mile an hour grace. So they don't really give tickets. And to me, that seems absurd that someone could drive 32 or 33 along one of these supposedly shared streets and ACPD would just shrug their shoulders.
And would both speeds be posted or only the yellow one?
Only the yellow and the black would be posted.
Okay. Jillian.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you. This is so great to see Arlington going in this direction. It's like finally, I don't know if you were around in 2020, but like a whole host of commission and committee leaders were begging the board to do something, anything like this. And so it's great to see it. I have to admit, I'm a little concerned by the timeline that you put out there, that we are taking so long to do something that has been done in plenty of places around the world. And you know, it's great if you guys are making this a pilot just to get it to happen, but we have to be moving faster. Literally, we have lives at stake here, and the pace at which, you know, the lack of urgency from the county on safety on our streets, I find really disturbing. And my hope here is that this project, that first of all, you'll speed it up as much as you can, but then also move to make it much more replicable, so that we're not doing hand count, you know, vehicle counts and speed studies on every single street without a sidewalk in Arlington. That's, to me, bonkers. And instead making it something where it's like, you don't have a sidewalk, boom, this is what you get. Because this is what we need. We need Arlington to be walkable. And starting with areas that are adjacent to schools and adjacent to community centers, but really we need the whole county to be walkable, so that we can all get where we're going, but especially kids who cannot drive can get the places they need to go. So first of all, support for the project overall, urge you to make it go as quickly as it can. Then on the design notes, I think you're taking feedback on the design things you talked about. I hope you'll keep it in mind that we need to make this safe enough for children getting to school. Just imagine, you know, third grade, second grade is the first grade where kids are allowed to leave school on their own, go to school on their own. Just think, have that in your mind, 9 years old. Is this safe enough for my 9-year-old or my 9-year-old niece or nephew or whatever it is, someone I love who's 9, to get to school using? If it's not good enough. We need, you know, we need those barriers. We need to arrange parking to create chicanes. We need to filter down the streets and have narrowness along the block. So it's great if you're doing that at the entrances to the blocks. for any block that is long, and I don't know exactly how long is long, but you know what it is, long enough for a car to get up to speed, they need to have mid-block narrowing as well, to make sure, because drivers unfortunately care much more about damaging their cars than they do about making sure they don't kill someone. So they need the visual cues to remind them to slow down. And I shouldn't say they, us. We all are. That cars are designed to make us not care, and so we need, as when we're drivers, the visual cues to go slowly, and that means we need narrowing, physical vertical things that narrow the roadway every so often, so that we're scared about the car being damaged, so that we slow down. On the signage, I was disappointed that none of the signs showed children or women. Not only do we want to be an inclusive community that recognizes that there are older people and younger people and women and men, but also there's actually a lot of studies that show that drivers are more cautious around women and children. So, for example, that stamp that you guys are considering for the street, if you put a kid seat on the back of the bike, if you put a ponytail on the person walking, first of all, you'll be more inclusive, and second of all, you'll probably have better driver behavior. And then lastly, the stamp that you're putting on the street, just think about the surface and what that surface will be like when it's wet. Many of the paint treatments that are used around the county get slick when they're wet, which isn't a big deal when it's a line. But if you're going to paint that whole circle and the inside of the circle, then it really, really matters. It needs not, you can kind of slip a little bit on a line, stay upright on a bike, but not for that whole circle. Oh, and I hope, my vision here is that we can figure out this treatment and then apply it not only to every street without a sidewalk, but also to every neighborhood bike route in Arlington, because we have these neighborhood routes that allow people to bike in places where there's no trails and there's no low stress bicycle infrastructure on the streets, but we need to slow cars down on those neighborhood bike routes. So hopefully you got all that. Happy to answer any questions.
I did get all of that. Thank you so much, Jillian. I'll be taking your comment regarding the signs to show women or children on the stamp as well to TE&O. They are our sign and stamp experts, and definitely also the materials. I think when it comes to materials, we did discuss the surface and surface conditions when wet. I think you can get an idea of what that will look like if you go to the courthouse. The new bus pads, which have been painted red, they're textured as well, so you can grip on them. There'll be a similar material that we use in the paint for the shared street entrance treatments. When it does come to the timeline, we want to make sure that we give enough time so that people become adjusted to and used to the treatments that are on the ground. And we do want to make sure that we're collecting the speeds. We're also trying to see how people use the street. When we were out there doing pedestrian counts, we were trying to see where people were walking on the street. Were they adjacent to the curb? Were they adjacent to the car? Were they in the middle of the street where they're most visible? And our hope is to get more people, in the middle where they are more visible, forcing cars to slow down. And another thing that we're also counting on with this slowed street treatment is our reliance on the yield street condition, which in many cases does work. When two cars are approaching one another from opposite ends of the street, they are forced to slow down. One of the cars is forced to yield and forced to give way. We do want to maintain street widths to maintain that condition at least. As I'm not sure if this is going to be a across the county kind of application, at least for the stamp and the sign. I think our first and foremost priority is trying to determine if there are places where we still can't put a sidewalk down. And if all those conditions are met that we can get a sidewalk, I think that's going to be the first precedent or the first preferred. And then if we can't get a sidewalk down, then it'll go towards the shared street treatment.
I think the problem with the location of people walking is that you haven't changed state law, and state law requires people walking the street to walk towards the side. So yeah, it's great that you want them to be visible, but they're actually required to be on the side and to be walking on the side, on the left side of the street for them. So I'm not really sure what the study there is, but you might want to keep that in mind. Also, I hope you guys will keep in mind that the network still isn't there. And so it's great that you're doing these 4 blocks, but these 4 blocks are distributed throughout the county. They're not, there isn't a full network of places that are safe and comfortable to walk. There's also not a network of places that are safe and comfortable to bike. And so it's hard to hear that you might be drawing conclusions about something with like just these randomly distributed blocks.
Randy, why don't you jump in now?
Just wanted to say that this corresponds closely to the way that we use our block, the block that I live on. And it would be a big help for us. And I'd like to know, how do we apply to be next? Jillian may be impatient. I'm impatient, but I also know how the county works. And I just want to make sure that our application gets in there next. So how do we do that?
Currently, this program is nested into the Neighborhood Complete Streets program. There is an ongoing application. Anyone can submit an application to recommend their street to the program. Staff will then consider the ranking for each street that is entered into that program against a number of factors, crashes, speeds, traffic volumes, the location and proximity of schools, commercial zones, bike infrastructure, a number of different indicators. The funding for the Neighborhood Complete Streets program typically allows for 2 to 4 projects a year. So it's quite competitive in that regard. And we haven't really discussed where does this pilot project program go if it is successful. And we haven't discussed what that funding looks like yet. We're still waiting to see if it is successful.
Aaron.
Hey, Brian, thanks for the presentation. I am very newly on the NCSC, so I heard your presentation before, but I don't know much else. But I do know it's a very small budget, and I do know with the pace you're talking about, it'll be at least 500 years before Randy's Street gets the paint, and I don't think you can wait for that.
No.
But I've got a similar street just outside my window here. No sidewalks, too narrow for that. A do not enter sign that everybody ignores. We'd love to get some treatment there. What we did get recently is that yellow double stripe on lots of intersections around our neighborhood. Somehow that got fast tracked throughout all of Arlington, and it's great. And it really helps at the intersections to get people to go to the right place and whatever. After the pilot, I guess, but I think we need to fast track this and say, if this is effective, if this is the right treatment, don't make people beg for it. Don't put it in a competitive bid process. Just get it out there. Like Jillian said, we got people dying from reckless drivers out there. And if we can't, if we want complete streets where everybody can get everywhere by car all the time, we got to at least slow them down. And so I think a wholesale application of this would be fantastic if we can find that it's useful. So I'm excited about it, but I'd really love to see it ramped up.
I'm really looking forward to getting the results after our monitoring and evaluation period.
And if there are any ways that we can help, like you were saying with the speed limits, I'm still obsessed with that that whole explanation. But like we can go to the county manager, we can individually go, they're not officially, to the county board members, and say, you know, if Brian Shelton designates a street, then it's got to have that 15 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour speed limit, 5 miles an hour. And it has to be a real speed limit. And so we should be able to, you should be able to do that across the board. If you designate a street as being in your program, then it seems like you shouldn't have to do this like temporary, well, it doesn't really count business.
Okay, thank you. I've written that down. Once we get to that point, I think you'll be hearing from me again.
Good. All right. Anybody else real quick before we lose Brian here? I think we're good. Thank you so much. That was fascinating.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right. So now we have Elwin talking about resurfacing for complete streets.
Yeah, I can be fast. We went a little bit over in the last topic, but that's fine. Let's see. I'm posting a link to the chat for this project. So basically, for this upcoming resurfacing season, we have an opportunity to implement some changes for a number of streets. I could share my screen. Let's see. Basically, out of the number of roads that will be resurfaced next year, we took a look and saw which ones could have an opportunity to make some changes. And there's 4 that rose to the top of the list. So now is the opportunity for the community to come in and provide any comments or feedback to see what things could be made better and that you may encounter on these streets. And among the 4 corridors is 4 Mile Run Drive from George Mason Drive to Walter Reed Drive, Lynn Street from Wilson Boulevard to 19th Street North in Roslyn, Shirlington Road, which is from South Kenmore Street to South 4 Mile Run Drive, and then Washington Boulevard from North Nelson Street to North Kirkwood Street. So this map is included on this website that I put in the chat. But yeah, just want to give everyone a heads up that this is out there and comments are due by this Sunday. So if you haven't done so already, we'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. But that's pretty much it for that. Short and sweet.
So can you elaborate a little bit on what kind of recommendations they'll be entertaining? I mean, you've listed a couple of the streets that I'm kind of fixated on, and I'd love to I'd love to fix them. But what this is just for resurfacing. So what are my limitations in making suggestions?
Yeah, generally when we resurface the roads, obviously we're replacing potholes, we're making sure that the streets are pretty smooth and that they last longer. So we typically try to avoid resurfacing the same roads over and over again. So the intention is that any kind of road that's resurfaced will have lasting changes that will last for years. So any kind of changes related to paint or signage are on the table. So it could be an opportunity, for example, to have crosswalks where they don't currently exist, maybe having better signage to maybe alert folks for approaching intersections. It could be opportunities to have bike lanes. Just any kind of paint and signage on the ground is a chance for that to be on the ground.
Signage, but not signals? Or are you looking at signals too?
Signals probably won't be considered as part of this process. But there are opportunities for example, to like reduce lane widths. Like there's some, I have some areas in the top of my mind which have lane widths that are pretty wide, which, you know, everyone on the call is aware that wide lanes encourages speeding. So just if you have an idea, if you live in these areas, we'd love to hear your experiences as well. Yeah, this is definitely an opportunity to make some low cost changes since we're already resurfacing these streets anyways.
All right, thank you. Jillian.
Yeah, thank you. Were there any streets on the list for repaving for next year that are also projects on in the bike element?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I actually was just looking at that. Let's see. I know this section of Arlington Road is shown as having an existing bike lane, but just because it's shown as existing doesn't mean we can't make it better, of course. And then, of course, like Lynn Street is pretty high priority for the county, not just safety wise, but also in terms of making it easier for folks to get across Roslyn from, you know, Arlington Boulevard to the Key Bridge. So that's definitely something.
What about the rest of the list? So you know, there was a big list and there are 4 on there are a big list of streets that will be repaved next year. This is 4. There's a bunch more. Did you look at those to see if they're on the bike element?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I can get back to you. I know the project manager is Kevin Cassidy. So they probably have a longer list that I'm not aware of at the moment.
Okay. I think, you know, it's illustrative that the bike element was passed right before the public spaces master plan. Public spaces master plan has an implementation committee and gets regular public reports about the implementation. Bike element, on the other hand, as far as I can tell, there's just very little effort put into the implementation. It's sort of an afterthought, not a regular thing. Like I would expect that that because repaving is supposedly one of the best ways to get these projects actually put in, I would expect that whenever the repaving list is made, that there's, you know, one column in the table that says, is this in the bicycle element? And should we be doing something on this? It should be something that's like at hand. I suspect that there's some blocks that are up for repaving that are in the bicycle element that aren't on this list of 4, which is really frustrating. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really frustrating, but it's super frustrating because these things are not ending up as capital projects and we're missing the opportunity to get better treatment basically for free as part of repaving. And so, you know, hopefully this is something that you can look into and just let us know, like, what is it they're not doing that's called for in the bike element, because that's supposed to be the master plan that the county is supposed to follow. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jillian. Go ahead, Cynthia.
No, I'm just hoping you can clarify how these 4, you said these 4 locations are at the top of the list. What does that mean? Because you and Jillian just now were explaining that there's actually a longer list of roads being resurfaced. So what, these 4, what is special about these 4?
Yeah, for example, like Washington Boulevard is on the high energy network. We recently just did an audit to see what's going on out there in terms of existing conditions. So since that road is already on the pavement for the repaving list, I assume that since it's on the higher energy network from Vision Zero, that's the reason why that project was pulled from the whole list for the repaving. But and then
so these are roads that you pulled because they're interesting to us, which they are. Um, or is it somebody else designated these as somehow relevant? Or Jillian, do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, in the past, what's happened, and I assume this is the same thing. In the past, there's been DES has a list of streets. I mean, DES keeps a list of all the streets, keeps a list of the condition of all the streets, and which ones are in the worst condition. So they're up there. They're like the candidates for repaving. And then around this time, DES starts planning for next year by saying, okay, realistically, what do we think we're actually going to repave next year? And then for the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, they've been saying, well, when we repave the road and we're going to put striping down, what streets should we put striping down in a different way? And there's that matrix of like when they need to do public engagement and how much public engagement they need to do. So this is they identify the streets they need to do some public engagement for in order to put the lines back down in a different way. And so when they say it's only 4, that's why I'm like, I suspect that they're just going, there's streets that will be repaved that are on the list in the bike element to be improved, but Arlington is planning not to actually improve them for whatever reason, because they're not doing any public engagement about those improvements. But that's what it's been in years past. This is the public engagement to put the striping down back in a different way when they're done repaving.
Really helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but public engagement shouldn't be required if the bike element of the master transportation plan has already identified the street as something that needs improvement. So yes, thank you, Jillian, for bringing this up.
We've made this point before. Yeah, it's very frustrating.
So I think and I don't know what the timing on this is, Ellen, but I think maybe it would be useful to us to see what is the complete list of resurfaced streets so that we can match it up against the bike element. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I could follow up to see what's the status of the other streets that would be resurfaced. I'm not sure exactly, but I can get back to you guys.
So could it be that because the other streets were in the bike element, that DES, like Steve said, figured that they don't even need public engagement and that they're going to put a bike, like a PBL or a bike lane of some sort, on those streets without public engagement? Or does that, if they were going to add a lane to a street that was already on in the bike element, like would we be notified on this list, or do they just do that because it's in the bike element?
No, if a street's going to be getting new protected bike lanes installed, that would be something that's separate from this process. This is more so just, alerting the community that, hey, these streets are being repaved regardless. Is there an opportunity to make it better than it is now? So things like crosswalks, things like narrowing lane widths, things like that. It's not intended to be a full-blown, construction project.
So none of these streets are going to get protection. At the most, it'll just be paint.
Yeah, in the past, we've gotten protected bike lanes through this process. Are you saying that's off the table now?
I'm not saying
This is how we got the
no.
Beach protected bike lanes. This is how we're getting the Quincy protected bike lanes.
Yeah, I'm not saying no. If it's been done before, it could happen again.
Okay. Great.
Aaron, you have been waiting so patiently.
Yeah, it's not a problem. I got a great question first. Lynn Street, will the repaving include paving over the grates or making them safer for bikes or something? I'd love to see that addressed. I know cyclists with skinny tires have had real issues, and I know it's just I weave through traffic to avoid those things. So address them if you can. Make sure it's part of what you guys are dealing with on there, if at all possible. But Washington Boulevard is more interesting to me. I'd love to see something happen there. I was just looking at the Google Street View 1 year ago. Guess what happened there? Repaving. You can see the trucks. You can see all the paving gone. November 2022. The whole street is all torn up, being repaved. So I don't know why it needs it again, except there's a lot of construction going on there. So maybe it's a mess. I don't bike on it because it's not real accommodating. But I don't know how 4 blocks of that is going to make that useful. Sure, put in a protected bike lane, put in a non-protected bike lane, but you go on either side of it and it's super dangerous. So
Well,
Jillian's excited to
so
answer that one.
please. I mean, a bunch of transportation staff came on our BC booth on our bike bus last Friday, and they saw this in action. But the intersection where Monroe turns into Lincoln, where it crosses Washington Boulevard, right now the intersection is striped so that Monroe is an intersection with lights, and Lincoln isn't included in the traffic light. And I think you can do it with just changing the striping and the signage, because as soon as you include Lincoln in that traffic light, then you've got a safe route to go all the way from Cherrydale, literally all the way down to Green Valley, on Monroe and then Irving and then Monroe, where every crossing of a major street is at a light. It's really hard to go north-south on a bike in the county with all safe crossings, and Monroe and Irving are great. This is the northern end of where they're great, and they could get all the way to Langston Boulevard, or actually north of Langston Boulevard, if all you did was fix this one intersection. So that you could do, I think, with just but you're right. I agree with Aaron about the protected bike nature of it, but at the same time, just putting in bike lanes and starting a road diet there would be hugely beneficial to the sidewalks, because the sidewalks are cracked. And this is, tons and tons of kids are walking to Washington Liberty. And right now they're on these tiny little sidewalks up against traffic that is encouraged to move very fast because of how wide the lanes are on Washington Boulevard. So even just a paint bike lane would be better, not really for biking, but it would be much better for people walking.
All right, anybody else? We'll move along. All right, thank you so much, Elwin, and we will look forward to that full list if you can get your hands on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And next up, we have backpack recommendations for the capital improvement plan. So the idea is that by sometime next month, the BAC and the Pedestrian Advisory Committee should come up with our recommendations for the county manager and write up a letter for what we'd like to see in terms of capital improvements. So it would be great to hear y'all's ideas. And I will just mention a few that I jotted down on my phone. One is anything we can do to improve the crossing at Shirlington Road and 4 Mile Run Drive. I am obsessed. And I think that's worth putting some money into, right next to the gorgeous playground. Second, I think it's worth investing in barricades, physical barricades for protected bike lanes, more than flex posts. Third, Vision Zero quick builds. Apparently we need a whole lot of money so that we can actually do these on scale. And fourth, side underride guards. Another thing that costs so little and could actually save someone from being beheaded. A walker, a biker, someone in a smaller car. When they get run over at a turn by a truck that doesn't have these side underride guards. So the proposal would be that county vehicles and contractor vehicles, for starters, would have to have these guards. So that's what I jotted down on my phone on a ride thinking about capital improvements. What else have we got, or do people have reactions to those initial four?
Sorry. I think we should implement the bicycle element in the master transportation plan. I think having a pot of money for, for safe routes to schools, or continuing, increasing the pot of money for safe routes to schools is really important.
Would that be a capital improvement?
Yes, in the sense that it would be capital that improves routes to schools. So, where we need to build a trail. Like, for example, there was a crash in the parking lot at Glebe Elementary, so it's on my mind. We could improve the trail to Glebe. Yeah, I know. We could improve the trail that goes from the neighborhood to Glebe Elementary. Or maybe do improvements on Glebe Road right in front of that school, for example. The other thing is, I don't think side underride guards are capital, because they would be parts to cars, and I don't think that counts as capital. And I don't know, well, I don't know whether the county owns its own vehicles, but regardless, I don't know that it would be capital. Yeah. That I think is the biggest thing.
So you mentioned the bike element. So there would be money. You're recommending funds toward the bike element, like capital funds?
Yeah, an actual concerted effort to implement the bike element. Right now, it's like, if a project gets on the list that happens to be on the bike element, great, it gets on the list, but there's no concerted effort to implement the bike element. There's nobody in charge of it. There's nobody looking at it. I don't know the last time we had an update to the metrics. We even put metrics in the element, and I don't know the last time we saw an update to those metrics. It's not disclosed publicly. It's not disclosed in the budget. Oh, and I will say, in the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission, we spent a lot of time thinking about the performance measures that are in the budget. And because if you actually read the budget document, that's a great source. Well, it could be a great source of data and information about what the county does. But a lot of times what's actually in there is the data itself is not actually that useful, and it's not tied to like our comprehensive plan metrics and things like that. So Owen, this is hopefully this is note will come from above too, because I think DMF is on board and asking for this stuff. But there are metrics in the bicycle element of the master transportation plan. I don't know the other elements as well, but since we're in the BAC, I'll stick to the bike element. It would be amazing to see those metrics from the bicycle element in the budget and to list where we are on those metrics. And like where the budget will get us. And some of them are sort of more operating budget, and some of them more capital, and some both. But
Okay. All right. Well, if we draft something, it's going to have to run by you and get this all right.
Yeah, happy to
see.
help. Just say performance measures that link up with the bicycle element and with the mission of the county's departments.
Okay. Great. Eric.
Yeah, since you mentioned here as being backpack, I'm just wondering, does it make sense to put this out to our members and have something to pull together by, say, between now and our next meeting, and then it's something we can vote on at the next meeting jointly?
Ideally, we'd have something written between our meetings. But alternatively, we have been thinking of discussing this again. I mean, we'll get further along, but we may not have it drafted by then. But at least, yeah, I mean, at least an outline, hopefully for the next meeting. And we'll do backpack meeting together in December if that works for you.
I think that's the plan at this time. And
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we'll move as quickly as possible. I'm not sure.
I guess what I'm saying is, and maybe we should talk, but try and get other suggestions, and then, you know, when we come together at our next meeting, we'll have a list that we can work off of.
That would be perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So who has more suggestions? If we don't have them right now, that's fine. Email me, or email Pam if you're on BAC, and we can put our heads together and try and come up with, or Eric, if you're gonna work on it, that would be awesome. Or Jillian, and we'll try and have a list for our backpack meeting in December. Okay, no other thoughts? Then we will move right along. Let's see. High school bike and walk commuting. Oh, I've got that one too. And how are we for time? We're okay. We're a little behind. So I can keep this fairly quick, but when we were talking before about transportation demand management in the schools, it seemed like there were a lot of areas that didn't really get covered, and I'm interested in people's thoughts and ideas, and also I wanted to suggest just a random idea that I've talked about a little bit with Jillian so far, and I don't know if it's worth pursuing, but a lot of us have been involved over the years with freezing saddles, and it's just the idea, like, what if there were an app for high school commuting, for walking, biking, and scooting? You would get points on the Strava app for non-motorized transportation to and from school. And we'd have to come up with some sort of point system. that looked at days and miles, and the first mile would probably get more points, like we do with freezing saddles. But it would be, and points would be cumulative, and then there would be award levels, and we and all the other parent groups and so on would get donations from businesses. It could be Amazon or Starbucks or South Block or all the other bagel places. We'd start with one school. We'd work with Strava to develop an app for this, or a variation on their app. Just an idea. I mean, we have a lot of thoughts on this. I could go on and on, but if there are any sort of immediate reactions, like don't even go there, or it has some potential, it's just a brainstorm, like how do you get the kids out of the cars. And in talking with my kids, they said, yeah, like if there were Starbucks on the other end of this, they would absolutely, embrace walking. So, yeah, I see we have comments already. Eric.
So I'm not sure I remember exactly when I saw this. It might have been in the Vision Zero update. It was either the last meeting that we had or Vision Zero update. Wasn't there a high school student that actually has been involved with like bicycle related stuff and bicycle safety? I'm just wondering, maybe that would be the person or those folks that we might want to start with if we wanted to pursue that. Actually get somebody from the high schools as a, potentially a student, as a representative of either a club or a group in their high school.
That's an interesting idea. Let's see, who else? I don't have chat open, but I saw there was a chat remark from McKenna. Have to drop, not drop the idea, just has to leave, I guess he meant. Yeah, another issue that the schools would probably have is student like safety and confidentiality, with where they live and their roots and all that. So one thing we thought of is like the kids could make up, one of the requirements is that your username is not your real name. They could make up fake names, screen names, whatever you call them, so that, and I mean that information could be hidden, their locations. But Steve, you know all about freezing saddles, so what do you think?
Well, it's not so much about freezing saddles and specifically, but more in general about creating some sort of a incentive system that will encourage our young friends to do this. And I really don't think that the distance is relevant. I think it's just how many days do you actually go to school on foot or on a bike. The fact that someone happens to live 1.2 miles away and someone lives 0.8 miles away shouldn't really be that important. It's the idea is just don't drive, do something else instead. And then it might be simpler, right? Every day that you go to school, human powered, counts as something, right? And then you accumulate enough points. Maybe you're on a team. That might be a cool thing to do. Your team accumulates enough points, you get free Toby's ice cream, you get, Starbucks double extra latte, spiced pumpkin, Fujimuechi, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, so I'm for that, but I think it can be simplified, to be how, go to school some other way, on using your own power, and you earn points for you or your team or your school. Maybe it's schools compete against each other. That might be a cool thing to do. So that's just my initial thought.
That's interesting too. To have like teams or schools compete. In terms of the miles versus days, the reason that we were thinking both should count is that, like, if some kid lives far away and like walks to school twice a week, and the other kid lives like across the street from the school and walks to school, like there should be some balancing that out in terms of point value.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is like when we spent now like 10 years trying to figure out what's fair in freezing saddles, and we never come up with the answer. So you're never going to come up with something that's fair. So just give up and do something that's simple instead of fair. Like simple and slightly unfair is better than complicated and slightly unfair.
Yeah, this is true. Now, I'm really bad at reading chat and talking at the same time. Did anyone in chat want to say anything, or should I read it out after?
I was just saying, even simpler than all of this is just to randomly dump Starbucks gift cards on all the bikes at a bike rack at a school. And do it every so often. Just do it randomly, so you're sort of encouraged to bike to school all the time, because you might end up with a Starbucks gift card.
That's very interesting. It would
Yeah,
have to be
I've had the same idea.
well-publicized.
Like just some kid who's riding to school, just like give them a $5 bill, and then they're going to tell all their friends, and then they're it seems random, but a little bit of randomness actually creates like a great incentive.
Wow. All right. Well, we can think about this.
Well, I guess is it part of something that could be incorporated into thinking on the Safe Streets to School program? I mean, who in the county or in the school system, I should say, on the school staff, would be the person to coordinate or partner with on some of these ideas?
That I don't know. I mean, I was thinking we would do a trial with one school, and we would work with the principal in that school.
Isn't that Kevin Treacle, who's the person at the schools who kind of is the catch-all for everything with school transportation?
That is, I mean, he does transportation demand management, and he was in our meeting recently, but I don't know that he would do this. This is sort of out of his realm. So we could brainstorm some more, but I like the idea with the Starbucks gift cards, just random. That would work too. All right, let's see. Let's keep moving. Unless anyone else has thoughts? No? Okay. Ellen, BAC membership.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. We talked about this over the summer, I believe, with regards to membership numbers and maybe trying to get our committee back to full strength. Let's see. I showed you guys this website before. So this is the last list of folks on the committee that we had identified. There's 12 folks here, but it does seem that some folks are no longer participating, such as Mark Blacknow and Tim Rosado. So if y'all want to increase the membership I guess should we talk about maybe how many numbers we should be getting? Because as right now, these are the 12 members, but since only 10 are participating, I guess that means we're short a member. It does seem from the revisions that the committee was looking at for the charter, I believe y'all were looking at maybe capping the member list to 11 folks. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't see a good reason to cap. Like, I mean, people, if we can find people who are interested in contributing, you know, we should have them. I don't ever want to exclude somebody who would like to be part of it. But that's not our problem right now, right? That's a different problem. But I don't want to ever create that problem.
Yeah, I agree. We don't need to cap it at 11. I would hope that those who have been coming can automatically become members. I mean, not automatically, but invited, because we have a number of people, some of whom are here, who've been coming every month for years, as I did every month for years without being members. So I think we should, that should be the top priority, that such people become members if they would like. I don't know how many that would, spaces that would leave, but it seems like a logical first step. And then, do we announce this anywhere? Does the county announce member opportunities? Or, I mean, to me, the best thing is if people start coming, and then they can get on board after they start coming. We just have to make sure that actually happens.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting to hear back from the county manager's office regarding the official memberships. I believe in the past y'all received actual formal membership certificates or something like that. I'm not sure if it predates my time.
We don't need certificates.
It's just an email.
It's been inconsistent over time. I have in a couple of occasions received, a PDF of a letter, saying that I've been nominated or appointed or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. But then there was a long period of time when that wasn't happening. And I mean, the committee kind of functions the way it functions regardless, but if there needs to be some official system in place, that's fine. One idea to see if we could capture more members would be if there would be a way to send an email or a note to each of the neighborhood advisory, what are they called? Whatever they're called, the neighborhood, each of the neighborhood committees, right? So there's 50 some of them or something, just saying the bicycle advisory committee is seeking civic association, thank you, to each of them, and saying that the bicycle advisory committee is open to having more people on its committee. If there are any interested members or citizens in your neighborhood who'd like to learn more, get in touch with us, that kind of thing. Because those people are already at least somewhat engaged, right? So and there are very well may be people on those the neighborhood committees who are bike riders and want to do more for bikes. So I don't know if that were an idea that people liked. I don't know who would implement that idea. Who would go about getting a note out to each of the neighborhoods? I mean, I could compose that message if you like. I mean, I think it's not hard, but I'm not sure who could actually send it.
Yeah, Kevin, did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, just a comment. to your point, Elwin, right? It sounds like we need to get a little bit of clarity in terms of how that ask has to be structured, or sort of what the process is. But I mean, that's something, Steve's point, like, hey, we can get this out to the civic associations, great. I'd love to, if it's something we can, promote, that like WABA can send out, like, hey, here's a way for you to get involved in your local community, officially join the Arlington BAC. I would love to be able to promote that as well. So yeah, to me, like, if we can just like let us know how that process needs to happen, whether sort of formal or informal. And yeah, I would certainly love to get that message out.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I guess maybe the next step could be like maybe some folks who aren't formal members. I could coordinate with you guys to see what needs to be done. So I believe we have a new application system. And then I can get you guys hooked up to the system and then maybe get you guys official.
Yeah, question for Kevin. Do you have, is the WABA database, can you break it out and hit just the Arlington members?
Yeah, absolutely. We could definitely, put that ask out to, I mean, I might include it in a larger email to more people, because there are other, similar committees, whether sort of formal, in Arlington, obviously the advisory committee is integrated within the county government. But like in Alexandria, right, there's opportunities to join BPAC, which is separate from the city government. So yeah, I mean, these opportunities, I think, are out there, and for me, it helps on a night like tonight, where I'm doing triple duty on meetings. I would love to be able to to have sort of a WABA representative, or somebody who would at least say, hey, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna take notes, yeah, in any case, yes, we can to your question, we can definitely put that out to just Arlington folks as well.
Well, so yeah, and so just sort of like basic marketing 101, personal, relevant, and timely. So when you would rather send a note specific about the Arlington Bicycle Advisory Committee to residents of Arlington, a generic note to like all of Northern Virginia saying, oh, you can join FAB or the BPAC or something, is going to be way less effective. So it's always better to target your audience, focus in on a very particular message, and do a specific ask than to be more generic. So that's what I would, if we can do that, that's what I would prefer. Target the Arlington residents with a very specific message to them. And I'm happy to help compose that or whatever it takes.
All right. Well, that all sounds good. So, and maybe as a first step, we could work to get the non-members who are engaged, officially on, and we'll see how many spots then we need to fill. And we don't have to fill everything right away, but I love to like reward, not that it's a reward, but I'd love to bring on those who are already here. All right, so let's move along since we're running a little bit short of time. Dana, would you like to talk about MOTS for a couple minutes?
Yeah, sure. We talked about this a couple of months ago. I intended to have some stuff done before I left for Africa and completely failed to do so. So I sent out yesterday a 4 or 5 pager that pretty much reflects what we had talked about earlier. I reworked it a fair amount to make it read a little bit better. And then this morning, I sent out a note that I would like to see the BAC and the PAC jointly send to the county manager with the intent of basically covering this that 5-pager, and then to open up the discussion. Say basically what we've done up to this point hasn't worked particularly well. That's the message we want to send. And we want to work to make the process, work better. So that's, Randy suggested I should soften the note to Mr. Schwartz a bit. I'm cool with that. And if anybody has any, critical issues with the longer document, let me know. But if we're going to do this, if we're going to meet with the county staff in December, then we probably need to get this to them ASAP.
So should we have a deadline for comments on, I know you've sent it more than once to the group, but should we have like a certain time, by which we need to send suggestions?
Yeah, how about this weekend?
Okay.
It's 5 pages. That's 1 page a day to read.
All right.
So I think this suggestion was made over in the email traffic when this was passed around before. This is a lot of information and it's great. I just think it's maybe too ambitious. What do
you mean too ambitious? Let's aim high. We think the process sucks right now. My words. Not,
okay. Yeah. I'm just.
So do we say, we just want to make it suck a little less?
So I'll give you another experience. I've been on FAC for a long time now, for 8 years now. And every year we've been talking about performance metrics. In fact, there have been multiple long reports, like over 30 pages, including one authored by Mark Schwartz when Mark Schwartz was on FAC, about performance metrics and the need to improve performance metrics. And I have never seen movement on performance metrics until this year. And the difference this year was that we didn't send them a 30-page report. We said, here are 5 things you could do. And they're like doing the 5 things. And then they actually came back to us and said, oh, those 5 are easy, give us more. And so, I'm counting chickens a little bit because we haven't seen the budget yet. But it looks like we actually made inroads in getting something done when we pared our ask way, way, way down and focused it in on some wins to build momentum to get to the other stuff. So I worry that a document this comprehensive, it's great, it's comprehensive, it has all the stuff in there. But because it has all the stuff in there, staff are going to look at this and say, oh, this is a lot of work. This is just a lot of work. No. And staff time is very limited right now.
Okay, Jillian, what I'm saying is we need to work collaboratively with staff to do this. We're not just tossing this over the transom and saying we'd like it done by the 1st of February. We're saying let's do this collaboratively because we don't even know how the process works.
What I'm saying is where I've seen success with the county is paring it way back to a very short list of high priority things that you can work on and getting those wins in. And then working on the rest of the list.
Okay.
And I think that would be a huge win. I think that would go a long way.
If it would be more convenient for you, I will send this directly to Mark Schwartz myself. I'm not talking about it. Jillian, you're saying do the top paragraph from each of the 5 pages. I disagree.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
okay.
3 things from the 5 pages.
Okay.
Like there's right
disagree.
now 2. Okay. I mean,
fine.
I
disagree.
hope you are successful. I have a lot of experience and just don't think it will be successful
And
otherwise.
okay,
Sorry.
that's fine. I disagree. So what I would like to do is, if anybody has changes as edits to this, please get them to me by this weekend. And then I would like to have the BAC and the PAC send it jointly, the cover note jointly to the county manager, with the intent of trying to open an actual collaborative discussion and answer many of the questions we've never had answered in the past several years of engagement on MOTs. Like, where are the points of intervention?
I do think we've gotten answers on a lot of this, and you know, part of it is that the county doesn't think that they have authority short of a stop work order, and they're not willing to ask Richmond about it for more authority, which is probably reasonable.
Okay, so anybody that has changes, has edits, get them to me by the end, by this weekend.
Okay. I mean, there may be ways to like do what you're saying, Dana, and also what Jillian is saying. But this initial letter would be sort of a preview to an initial conversation, and then out of that hopefully would come, you know, a list of 3 things or 5 things or whatever that we can all agree on. So there may be ways that will follow both paths. So comments to Dana by this weekend. We should all, or those of us on the list, should have the document, and I can make sure that anyone else is on the list. If you're not on the list, let's get you on the list. I can do that on the back list. Okay, so thank you, Dana. We will work on that. And now Elwin, I think, had a few quick updates.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. Yeah, just some quick things that I wanted to bring up since folks have been asking about them. And it does seem like a lot of these things are in a state of suspended animation. So I just want to give everyone a quick update on some things. So from the last meeting that we had back September with the Signals team, when Josh Nichols came and gave a presentation, he sent over some materials that I can share with the group with regards to, I believe folks were asking for the map for the pedestrian recall locations, which he told me are all active and up to date and all verified. Then he also shared a copy of the presentation that was shared, so I could send that to everyone in the meeting. He also let me know that the request for pedestrian signals at the Shirlington and concrete plant was approved, but he hasn't field verified it yet, but I can follow up with him. And then he also sent over basically the way to report a problem for any signal issues, which I can drop in the chat right now. And then let's see what else. We still haven't heard much with regards for the VDOT Route 1 study. They've so far just let us know that they're anticipating to have the speed study and the first draft of the phase 2 report completed by next month. We're not sure specifically what date or if it's going to be before Christmas, but I can definitely let you guys know, hopefully by the next month's meeting. And then with regards to Shirlington and 4 Mile Run Trail, we are conducting a feasibility study to see what could be done to improve the crossing there, whether it's, an above grade crossing or maybe below grade, not just looking at safety, but also taking a look at hydrology for the stream, taking a look at what can be done, and then hopefully coming towards some kind of alternative that's better than what's there today. Still waiting to hear back on the charter updates. I know I keep saying that almost every meeting. But we're still waiting to hear back from the county manager's office for there any changes. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now. If anybody has any questions.
So on Shirlington Road, who would be the person to talk to about short and medium term solutions? Because if we're just now thinking about a feasibility study that we want to launch in the future on these sort of big solutions, I mean, I'd love a bridge, a tunnel, or a helicopter, but who in the county would be responsible for short and medium term?
Yeah, probably Kevin Cassaday. He works with our quick builds team in terms of getting things immediately out there as soon as possible.
Can he also work on the signals?
That would probably be a question for Josh, the guy who was presenting for that signal study back in September.
Yeah, it would be nice if we had some solution that's not like 5-10 years off, just to make it a little bit safer for those kids. All right, who else has thoughts? We have a whole minute left. We good?
Cynthia, I'd like to talk to you a moment after the recording ends, just about the Vision Zero external stakeholders meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's nothing else, I could stop the recording if you guys like.
Sure.